Okay, Mike, I've added just one more slide after my
Okay.
restaurant example.
We are live. So we're not going to start presenting until after 10. Right now I'm just making sure the audio is going through. Testing. Josh, can you hear me? All right, I got to fix that up. All right, so okay, you can hear me, Mark. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so
There's always a little bit delay on the side that I see, so I'm going to try to get the chat in here. Okay, you can hear me, Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it. So there's always a little bit delay on the side that I see, so I'm going to try to get the chat in here. Okay, you can hear me, Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it. So there's always a little bit delay on the side that I see, so I'm going to try to
I cannot hear you, Mike.
here.
I cannot hear you, Mike.
Okay. Testing, testing. I see the stream could hear us, but Josh, you can't hear me. And that's unfortunate. Same thing with the video capture. Why is the video capture not? It's like no matter how much you try to test this stuff. There we go. Yeah, it's a broadcast studio thing. So you guys could hear me on the stream. You could hear Josh on the stream, but Josh and I can't hear each other. And that's sort of important for our presentation. I'm going to try to see if it's Video Ninja that's causing the issue. Testing, testing.
And I think they can hear me, but can't hear you, Mike.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I could hear you only through the stream, which has a huge delay on it. Director's microphone. It's funny, I thought we had this up and running the other day without issue. That's funny, Josh. I'm just trying to see why it's not allowing me to hear you, Josh. As you can see us, like I said, there's going to be a delay on this stream, but that's not going to be good. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I think maybe connect audio via OBS. Just bear with us, guys, as we try to figure this out. Kind of feared something like this might happen. I wonder if I have to set up my video device through Video Ninja. Let's take that off. Are you sure you want to?
We could do 20-second delayed interpretive dance.
Audio input. I'm going to take.
We could do 20-second delayed interpretive dance. Mike, are you there? I think I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah. ABC, yes. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen right now. I feel like that's technology. It just changes. Yes. I see your source coming in. So you're sending your video and your audio through. Okay, I see you back on the channel. Mike, we are getting some, echoing, pulsing from you. Did you remove your audio source from OBS? There we go. We're back. I feel good. I'm here. I found chat as well. Can you guys still not hear Mike? Well, that was a crazy echo.
And talking, I put the audio through OBS, which is the broadcast studio. It'll take a still can't hear me.
Well, that was 20 seconds ago.
Okay, hold on. We got to wait for the update. Let's see. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Audio's coming through.
Hooray.
I hear Mike now. Okay. I figured it out. You just have to forgive me. You're talking about a new user with a new tool, and we thought we had it set up. But perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you dealing with a little bit of the hiccups. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my. First of all, hello. Thank you for joining. All that good stuff. You can see me. Josh, say hello. We're going to
Hello.
go into presentation mode, so to speak. I have a couple things I wanted to show you first. So what we're going to do is let me just change this into like a full screen so you can kind of see what's going on here. And before I get into the presentation on what is Qlik MCP, going to have some generalization, but I just wanted to share some really important value and how it works immediately out of the box, so to speak, and give you an example of the art of the possible. Okay, so let me just
I've been able to hear you. I can hear you still. I wonder what changed. Mike says he's sorry, everyone. And the good news is this is supposed to be informal, so we're just keeping it very informal today.
I think I know what happened. Okay, I think I know what happened. Yeah, I know what
Did you
happened,
click the
Josh.
button? You clicked the
Yeah,
button, didn't
it's
you?
the damn it's this thing. If I shut this off, shuts the audio off too. It works a little bit different. So I got to keep my camera on. That's all it is. It's
There we
just
go.
typical, learning curve. Sorry, guys.
Welcome back,
Okay.
Mike.
Alrighty. So when I shut off my camera, we lost the audio. What I did is I created a prompt within my LLM client. In this case, I'm using Anthropic Claude. And this is connected to my Qlik MCP server. And I'm going to show you all those pieces as well. But it's also connected to two custom MCP servers or tools that I created to work with Dropbox and Gmail developer APIs. So when I said create a very simple HTML report, it's actually using the agentic reasoning from Qlik and additional integrations with Dropbox and um, Gmail to create a simple report and then upload that report to Dropbox and then actually send that report to an email. So if I go to my browser now and we log in to my Dropbox account, you can see at 10:12, we got a report here. Here's your top 5 oldest open orders report with the link to Dropbox. And I click that link, and there is my report in Dropbox. Okay, so a lot has happened within a few minutes. We spent more time trying to get this stupid stream set up and less time generating a report, emailing it to the person who needed to see it, and generating the content in the format we needed uploaded to a file share. So that's the way it was supposed to kick off. But in this particular instance here, we had some problems. But you can see how powerful that was. And if I look under the covers, right, you can see if I go to connectors, not only do I have my Qlik MCP server turned on, but I also have Dropbox and Gmail, and those are two custom ones that I built. Okay, so this just gives you a little bit of a feel of what's possible. Um, you're really limited by your imagination at this point, and you can really design workflows that work for you to make your life a lot easier. Okay. So that being said, what I want to do is I just want to now backtrack a little bit into the presentation, show you quickly how I connected. Um, just a note, the screen resolution is bad. Mark, put on a pair of glasses. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's try 1920. We don't control the screen resolution. I'm wondering why that is.
I wonder. Yeah,
If
we're gonna do some troubleshooting
Yeah, we'll
off
figure that
stream,
out.
and next week is gonna be glorious for
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah. We're not done with MCP server yet, guys. This isn't going to be a one and done. It just took me a while to get to this point to be able to kind of share a lot of the stuff with you based off of my other responsibilities. Um, okay, so let's see. Hold on one second. I'm just getting some information in the chat, Josh. 2 seconds, guys. Yeah, all this stuff looks standard. All right. Well, if you can deal with the resolution for now, and we'll focus on some of those troubleshooting points a little bit later. What I wanted to do now is go into part of the presentation, just share that with you as far as what are we doing under the covers, what is Qlik MCP, and how this stuff works. Okay, so you guys should just see a slide now. Is that correct? Josh, are you monitoring the stream?
I'm watching it. Give me a few seconds for it to load.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come up with a better approach.
I've got some ideas. I do see PowerPoint now.
Okay, cool. All right, so what I wanted to do is before we got into more of the details of it, right, let's just quickly understand what the MCP server actually is. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's essentially a way for AI systems um, to safely connect external tools and data. That's pretty much it. Every or most software companies have APIs, right? Application program interfaces for you to, roll your own or code your own or work with the product that they make. Well, MCP is kind of like the gateway or the bridge between that. It basically is, allowing you to connect with outside systems, right? Databases, APIs, applications. It handles requests, it gets results, it sends it back in a format that the AI can understand. Uh, in simple terms, it's allowing AI to go beyond just chatting and actually, interacting with real systems and services. That's pretty much it. Okay. Oh, Josh, you inserted your slide.
I've got my slides. I snuck them in.
You stuck them in. I'm gonna move them up, and then we can handle your slides. Okay. Now, a couple things that I did want to make you aware of, right? Why am I jumping directly into this? For those of you who have used MCP Server already, you're going to run into what's called usage limits, right? Depending on the plans that you pay for. I ran into this yesterday when preparing for this presentation, right? I was doing some troubleshooting. I wasn't connected to certain services, and I started asking certain questions. And then all of a sudden, you hit your limit. It resets at 7 p.m. So this, I can't take credit for this. Josh sent this to me earlier today, and I kind of enhanced it a little bit. But this is basically what it's like when you're working against usage limits and waiting for it to reset. So it's important to keep usage limits in mind, right? Each request that's made to the MCP server still counts toward model usage. There's message limits, tokens, rate limits. It depends on the plan. If you have an enterprise plan, it might be different. If the workflow involves multiple tool calls, like you saw in my example, they can add up quickly. So while MCP enables powerful integration with external systems, and developers need to really design workflows carefully to avoid hitting those limits too fast. In short, MCP expands, what Claude can do, but the underlying usage limits still apply. So be aware of that.
I would just add really quickly to that, Mike.
Yes, please.
more details this depends on your service provider. So we're not talking about Qlik right now. We're talking about, in this case, Claude that Mike is demoing, or you know, Chat GPT or others, right? And so every vendor has a different system. Some don't have usage limits, and you can spend and spend and spend and spend and spend until you get that bill at the end of the month where you're like, oh man, we used a lot. So something to just think about as you're thinking about through these things, like you were saying, Mike, is just it's important to know what you're trying to get out of it, so that if you did have a presentation at 6:50 p.m. and you ran out of tokens before 7, something to be aware of.
Absolutely. And then that goes into the next part of this slide. AI has a ton of potential, right? It's only as good as the data that it can actually access and the tools it has to work with. And a lot of times companies will roll out AI and they're not really giving it access to trusted data or the analytics tools to produce meaningful results. So it's garbage in, garbage out. But the reality is data usually isn't sitting neatly in one place. It's often spread across different systems. I mean, the examples that I'm showing you is actually accessing like 3 or 4 different sources. Sometimes it's incomplete, sometimes it's wrong. The data model is very important as well, right? So, for example, I did a test yesterday where I was trying to calculate lead time. Well, I also had a metric called age in my data model because I was testing different measures and I forgot to delete age. I really wanted to use lead time, but my MCP picked up age and returned the wrong result. And it returned basically what was in the data model. It didn't, hallucinate. It just basically returned what I gave it. And I should have been more specific and said, please use lead time and not age, or even better, have a clean data model and don't have multiple and duplicates of measures and metrics. And that's the problem with us as developers and people who are moving this fast, is that you're always a work in progress. You're always working on something and you not the best at cleaning up your garden, kind of like a landscaper's yard is never mowed type of thing. So that's one of the things you have to keep in mind, making sure your data model is clean. Josh, if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah. I would add to that specifically as well, because we've had, now the MCP server has been released for almost a month, and we've had a lot of customers using it and trying it out. And something that we knew would happen, Mike, as you just mentioned, in Qlik, it's so easy to add more and more data to your model so that you can get that full insight. And we've found that if you don't have really good definitions for that data, if you don't have good descriptions on your master items and so on, you have fields that are very similarly named with maybe a numeral or a character to delineate between the two. The LLM doesn't pick up on that well. And so, yeah, just as you had age and date as two fields, there was one example we saw where someone had the same naming schema for the first like 3 words. It was like uh, essentially product marketing details underscore field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they just had that over and over and over. And they struggled because the LLM is trying to understand the difference in the product, the marketing, the details, and then the actual field name that they're using was just throwing everything off. And so what we found and what we're seeing and we expect to see more of is, as we move into more of a time where the LLM is doing the work with the data just has to be even more clear and understandable so that the LLM can use it. Like, I think of the example of myself in a previous life when I worked in on the phones doing support for data. And a customer would call me up and say, "Josh, I'm having trouble with my visualization." And I go to log in and I help them. We do a screen share and I look at their data and I have no clue what they're trying to do because I can't even read the fields that they're using. So a good litmus test is, if you can give your data model to somebody else who doesn't know it, and they can look at it and understand what's going on when there's a good chance an LLM can. If they can't understand it, the LLM is going to struggle, and to your point, Mike, may return age instead of date.
Right, right. And that's what I've seen a lot. And how would we solve that? And you're going to see some of this today if we have more time. But data products are going to help solve that. Data products basically collecting all of your curated governed data into one known object or entity that would be used solely across the board for the analytics scenario, the application that you want to use it for. That way, you're not accessing multiple fields, multiple models, multiple dimensions that are, in other apps or something like that, but you're using one single version of the truth. And we can talk about and have even another session on data products in the future. Okay, my last slide that I just want to cover is just, introducing MCP Server, right? So in its most simplest terms, the MCP server is just the gateway that lets the AI agents, in this case, I'm using Claude as the LLM. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini, you can use others that support the OAuth protocols that we support. Um, that's also in our help docs and stuff like that as well. We offer two, quick ways to connect ChatGPT and Claude using our global client ID versus having to set up a OAuth setting in the tenant. But basically, utilizing that agent with a powerful set of tools, and you're going to see those that span the entire Qlik portfolio, right? Give or take. We're introducing more and more. There's read tools, there's write tools, etc. So AI basically just works with the trusted data products, the analytics engine, and any new innovations that we build into the Qlik platform. And it just takes the capabilities further. And Qlik is now the high performance intelligence layer for the AI, helping deliver the relevant insights from the trusted data. And it also makes it easier to automate data, create analytics workflows at scale, okay, and keeping things efficient and cost effective. And that's pretty much what it is. And now what I'm going to do is go back to Claude LLM. I'm going to run a couple of simple scenarios and just show you the setups. And then I'm going to turn it over to Josh for more demonstration. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it over to Josh so we can handle his part of the presentation because we have a couple of things to clarify. Okay, so now I'm back within Claude, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a split screen. I'm going to bring up an app, and I'm going to refresh this app. Josh, one day I would love to fix my server to keep me logged in all day, 365 days a year.
It would be very nice.
I'm
We're working on it.
I am so tired of having to log in every 10 minutes. Okay. So this is my app and this is my MCP. Okay. If I go into administration and we go to home, there's some server-side components to be set up on the tenant. Okay. And two of them, one is within settings, and this is accessing what's called cross-regional information sharing or cross-regional data processing. It's also referred to as CRIS. AI products features may leverage cross-regional data processing. I'm not going to get into this. There's a link on the documentation, but this has to be enabled. If this is not enabled, you're not going to get MCP interaction to work. The other thing that has to be enabled is a new permission has to be set up. So creating a new permission, for example, here, giving it a name, MCP Mike, and then going to permissions and searching for MCP. It's under features and actions, agentic AI, and you can see it's set for not allowed. I would set it to allowed. And now I have a new role or permission that I can set for a user. So if I wanted to go in and take Adam Jacobs, manage his role, and check AI features access via MCP, now he'll have access to MCP via his login for Qlik. Okay, so that's pretty much all that needs to be done on the tenant side. On the LLM client side, and this is all documented, by the way, so don't worry about like taking screenshots of this and like, oh, Mike went by too fast. We can very easily connect to ChatGPT and Claude using the global client ID, and we provide that right here. It's just a cut and paste. You see connecting to other LLM clients is possible, creating OAuth clients. I'm not going to go through that, but you can see here we have our client ID, and you just have to copy that and have that available. And you need the URL as well, and you can see the URL is right here. So from the client side, in this case, Claude, if I just go into my side panel, I go to settings, and we go to connectors, and we add a custom connector. You give it a name, you put in the remote MCP server URL, You add in the global client ID, and boom, and you connect. And then basically at that point, you're logging into Claude or ChatGPT, and you're logging into your tenant, and that's it. And then
And Mike,
you're yes,
if I can interrupt really quickly, what's important here is what you just said. You are logging into Qlik. So the MCP server is proxying on your behalf. So because we're using OAuth, and if you're not familiar with it, OAuth is a more rigorous type of authentication. But what it does is now in the MCP server, Mike is signed in as Mike. So when the MCP server takes an action, Mike is taking that action, not an MCP server, Mike. So if Mike has access to data, the MCP server has that same access to data. And if Mike doesn't have access to that data, whether he's not in that space, whether there's section access enabled, all of the data permissions today, the MCP server can't see those things. And it takes it even a step further, because if Mike has access to edit an application, the MCP server has access to edit that application in a different space. If Mike doesn't have edit access, the MCP server doesn't have edit access. I hope I've made this point clear. Is we
yes.
really wanted to make sure that everything that you've built up to today and tomorrow, in terms of governance, in terms of data access, all of that is respected. So the MCP server doesn't allow you to work around the governance you've already set up. It's just as if I were signed in myself or Mike were signed in as himself.
Correct.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, that's good. That's a good point. And then there's this extra layer here with permissions for each individual tools. By the way, I just reshared my screen at a higher resolution using the broadcasting software. It
It
looks,
looks much better.
yeah, it looks clear to me too. So hopefully you guys are still with me. Okay. So when you go into the connector, you're going to see these elements here are tools. Okay. And these will continually be refreshed, right, Josh? There's like more added each time we release something.
Yeah, so you get all tools you just get as soon as they're turned on in here. They're not restricted by an admin, as an example.
And when you hear the word tools, these are just think of them as, oh, back in the day, I used to code an API through a RESTful service or a endpoint that allowed me to list a bunch of things, search a bunch of things, write a bunch of things. It's that same thing. It's just like taking these APIs and then making them available and exposing them through the LLM client as what we call a tool. So describing apps, getting chart information, right? Getting things, reading things, listing things. Those who have a developer background will understand this. Um, and this will engage with many different parts of the product. Business glossary, for example, chart components. We're adding agents that are going to handle styling. We're adding agents that are going to work with automation. We have agents that work with predicting, agents that work with Qlik data integration, kicking tasks off. I mean, basically just exposing all these APIs as tools that can work with the LLM client. Um, Write tools. Here we have Qlik delete data product, Qlik delete a glossary term. And then other tools is, I think, I don't know if this has been here. Yeah, add chart, add filter, right? So I can say, create me a dashboard, and it's going to create a dashboard for me. Okay, so that's basically just that part of setting up the LLM client and the actual server. So now if I just go to a chat, right, and we create a new chat, and let's do a side-by-side comparison here now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to split these screens. You want to talk about annoying having so many pieces at once. So I'm going to put that there and Claude there. All right. So now you guys should see a split screen. And I'm going to go back to analytics, and I'm going to go to an app. And then in my PowerPoint, I actually got some prompts that I'm going to just cut and paste. Okay, you're going to see at the level that this can be used. So what glossaries are available to me? So a glossary, if you guys are familiar with our catalog and the business glossary, it's a way of defining governed descriptions and ownership for your metrics, measures, dimensions, and so forth, right? So if I go to glossaries here on the left, and we turn on a list, you can see I have RGB sales, customer care. I have two of them, sales analysis and insurance terms. And look what MCP is returning. There are 5 glossaries available. All right, a second copy with no description created the same day as number 2, duplicate, sales analysis, insurance terms, etc. Right, so let's go into the RGB glossary. And I can say in the MCP prompt, what terms are available in the RGB sales analysis glossary? And as you can imagine, it's going to return the terms that you see here, along with the descriptions. Okay, open orders, orders not flagged as closed, canceled, or in progress, right? So I can say delete open orders term in this glossary. And it asks you confirm, and it verifies the term ID and all this other type of stuff. In this case, I'm just going to say yes. And here it's now invoking that tool, and you'll see the agentic reasoning, and you could expand it to basically validate and verify. And now you can see it's done. Open orders term has been deleted. Now you can see it right here. This screen isn't active. Once I click the screen, you're going to see open orders disappear. And there it goes. Okay, so this just gives you a quick example of the interaction that can be possible, right? And this is where you start using, outside of the Qlik UI, you're now using a third-party client to perform the additional management operation responsibilities that, developers could use, or managers of a BI infrastructure could use, instead of actually going through the tool. And then you could actually develop programs to create batch processes and work with management of these many different objects. And this, we can expand this, right? So now what I'm going to do is, because there's a reason I'm going through this, because I'm showing you how this all works together. I'm doing these piecemeal, one at a time. You could form a prompt that can do everything in one shot. Okay, so I could say in this case here, can you create a new term, open orders, describe it as the number of orders that are not flagged, as closed, and also not canceled or listed as in progress, and create blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And you could do all of them, right? But I'm doing this just to give you an example of how this works. And now I'm going to show you a double example of this. Done. The open notice term has been created in the RGB sales analysis terms, the number, blah, 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 its current draft status. Would you like me to do anything else? So I'm going to click this, and you can see there's open orders. We go to open orders. Status is in draft. It's been verified. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the app. Going to edit the app. And now we're going to look at the master items library. So if you're not familiar with master items are a way of creating reusable governed expressions and visualizations in the form of dimensions or measures of visualizations, and making them available to that app. So here's one called open orders, right? I'm just going to delete this one for now, just for argument's sake, for the demonstration. Okay, open orders is gone. In the new graph order fulfillment app, create a new master item named open orders, which will count all orders that are open and in progress, and assign the glossary term open orders to it. So now we're taking this, we went from a catalog level, utilizing governed terms and methodology within the business glossary, and now we're working at creating master item measures within a app, and at the same time assigning that term that we put in the business glossary to that master item. So now you're seeing like a bunch of those tools being invoked from the LLM into the Qlik application. And once again, as I mentioned, you can look at the agentic process happening in the verification process. And there it is. Now let me create the master measure with the correct field name, and then link the glossary term. The order ID field is status. Now I'll create the master item measure and link the glossary term, and there it goes. It just popped up. And if I click open orders, See, master measure created. Now linking the glossary term to it. All done. Here's a summary. And if we click it, if you guys check the pop out on the side, what do you see? The number of orders that are not flagged and closed and also not canceled listed in progress. There's your expression. And there is the glossary term that we created. So all of this was created through MCP. Okay, and now for the finale, what we're going to do, well, not really finale if you want. So now I'm going to move over to Sheets and keep an eye on this area here. So now I'm going to say, create a new sheet in the same app and name it Open Order Analysis and create a KPI chart showing the new created open order measure. And there it is. So now I click the sheet and there it just created the chart. And then finally, in the same sheet, I would like a dashboard that shows me how my business is doing so far. So this takes a little bit more understanding and reasoning, because now it's going to understand, well, what determines how a business is doing. And it's going to make that determination by looking and inferring based off of, all right, well, sales figures and understanding, increase in sales trends, customer retention, top selling countries. It's basically going to use what it has. And there we go. So now you can start seeing on the left, it's actually generating total orders, right? So this is all for 2026. Total new customers, open orders, current orders, monthly sales trend. And we can see the sales trend order is showing me February, January, March. That's a sorting thing. I don't know what, Josh, I don't know if you could address that. That's something
It's
that
probably a data thing. Whoever built this data model.
I was just drinking coffee as you said that. I almost spit it out.
I'm so sorry. Something I do want to mention though, as we're watching this run and have watched this run, we've been talking a lot about MCP, but there's also a very large dependency here on model. And that's specifically the language model used. So if you look in the bottom right of Mike's screen, we're using Sonnet 4.6 for this. Sonnet 4.6 is a frontier model. It's way up there in terms of its capabilities, what it can reason through, how it can problem solve, and then the training data. There are bigger models and there are smaller models. And so our MCP server is directly impacted by the model that you use with it. And so Sonnet, the Claude models, even Haiku works great. But we have noticed that there are other models out there, like a lot of the open source models, where if you don't give them enough context window and if they don't have a large enough parameters on them, they can't actually run these tools like we're seeing here. So internally at Qlik, we use Claude for our MCP server across the company for those departments that have it, just because it works so well. But we have customers who are tied to a specific vendor or specific LLM, and they're making it work for them. So obviously when you spend the most money on the most expensive things, you get usage limits, but also you can get a better experience. And so it goes back to the beginning of the trade-offs, right? If we were to run the same request with a different model size, Opus, it may have fixed that sorting thing and may have caught that. If we ran it with a smaller model, it may have left out the pie chart entirely here, right? It's very non-deterministic, and that's the exciting and the part that causes some hesitation as well.
And then speaking of some of those, tools running and what the usage is, like I'm at 60% already. So that's, again, something to keep into consideration when doing stuff like this. So at this time, based off of the call, we're pretty much on time. You guys can use the chat to start asking questions. I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who's going to also clarify a couple of points. And one of the things that I did want to mention, a question that does come up, Josh, I would like you to address on your part of the presentation. We have Qlik Answers. And Qlik Answers is retrieval augmented generation, right? Working with a curated knowledge base. But it also now has capabilities to work with not only the structured data through, PDFs, PowerPoints, files, HTML pages, Word docs, but could also go through, I'm sorry, the unstructured data, but also can go through like structured data, like an analytics app, very similar to like MCP is. But there's got to be different guardrails or certain differences. I was hoping maybe you could address that.
Of sure. Yeah. So what we have built with Qlik Answers is we have taken away a lot of that complexity that I was actually just mentioning right now, right? If you're using the MCP server, it's important for you to choose an MCP client and a vendor that provides that client. You need to do the research and planning around which models you're going to use. Are you going to use something like Sonnet? Are you going to use something like Llama? Where do you fall in the spectrum of all of that configuration is on you, right? Which is exciting for some and is daunting for others. And so Qlik Answers, we have found the models, we have built the, for lack of a better term, the agent harness, and we have all of that taken care of. So when you're using Qlik Answers, it's a very turnkey experience. You open the door and you get started. That's it. You click a button to index an application, you click a button to index your unstructured files in your knowledge base, and Qlik Answers just works. With MCP, as we've seen here, there's configuration, there's usage limits, there's, a never-ending list of things to maintain. And for use cases, that makes a lot of sense. We have customers who are building their own agents and building our MCP server in as a small portion of it. And we have other customers who are saying, I don't want to deal with any of this. This is all brand new to me. Qlik Answers sounds awesome. So we have both choices. Do you want to build it yourself? Or do you want to walk in the front door and just have it work? I think that's the best way to describe the difference between Qlik Answers and MCP, because as I'm about to mention in this slide that we have pulled up here on screen, they're using the same technology on the bottom, right? It's all Qlik. It's just which way are you accessing Qlik? Through the front door? Are you going through the side door? It's all still Qlik. So what I do want to explain now with this this analogy that I like to have around MCP servers. We've seen it work a few times, and this is to kind of hopefully help drive it home or hopefully help connect the dots. When you go to a restaurant and you sit down at the table and the waiter comes up to you, you're not allowed to go into the kitchen as the customer, right? Those doors, even though you could, are not accommodating for that. And so whose job is it to go into the kitchen and act on your behalf? That's the waiter. And so as the customer in the restaurant, the access you have to the kitchen is limited. But you do have great access to the waiter. And so, Mike, if you can pull up that slide one more time really quick, what ends up happening is the waiter is the one who approaches you on behalf of the kitchen and says, Josh, welcome to the restaurant. Go ahead, Mike. What?
Oh, sorry. There it is.
Okay, no worries. The waiter welcomes you to the restaurant and says, Josh, welcome in. What would you like to have today? And the waiter, being intelligent, knows when you say, hey, I'm really hungry, but I'm lactose intolerant. The waiter knows right off the bat, okay, well, I can't offer A, B, or C for Josh. So when I present Josh with a menu and an option, and he goes to ask me for A, B, or C, I'll inform him, by the way, Josh, that does have dairy in it. This then translates when the waiter goes to the kitchen and says, Josh would like this meal, but he can't have dairy. The kitchen can make an informed decision and prepare a dish for me that works for me and my needs. I hope you can see where this is going, but let's now talk about all the labels on the slide, right? So the waiter in this example is the agent, the MCP client. This would be Claude Desktop. This would be ChatGPT. This would be Gemini. These agents have multiple capabilities. And when, as Mike mentioned at the very beginning, when an agent and their agent harness has an MCP client in there as a function, other tools that they may have access to are web browsing. We've seen that a lot. They may be able to have other like image generation or so on and so forth. So MCP client is just another tool that an agent harness can have. So when an agent harness has an MCP client, they can function as this go-between between me, the user, and the kitchen, which in this case is the Qlik MCP server or another tool like Dropbox or Gmail, as Mike showed off. So the waiter, the agent, presents me with a menu, and that menu is the MCP tools. That's what I get to see as a user or as a customer in this restaurant analogy. I don't get to see what the kitchen is doing. I get to see what the kitchen has allowed me to see. So, as we as Qlik have prepared our MCP server for you, we've said, here are the tools that you can see, and we're going to hand wave what happens on the back end. So I get to look at the list, the menu, the list of tools, and say to myself, I'd like some Qlik create sheet and some Qlik add chart to sheet and maybe some Qlik apply selections, please. The waiter then translates my request to the kitchen. And so this is where we talked about the model being important. A good waiter, a frontier model, a model that has a large context window, has a lot of parameters and a lot of training data, can take the words I say and translate it to the correct tools more often than a smaller model or a less capable model, because there are so many conflicting, not conflicting, but very similar things in Qlik. As a great example, a filter does not exist in Qlik. A selection does. And so if I were to talk to a smaller model and say, can you please filter my data? It may take a look at our tools and say, there is no filter tool. So I can't complete that request for you. I can't take that to the kitchen. Even though what I really meant, and what, for those familiar with Qlik, it's really a selection. And so a larger model can reason through that better than a smaller model. So anyway, so I've made my request to the kitchen. The waiter has said, okay, great. I'm going to submit your order to the kitchen. In this case, that's called the MCP request. This is the MCP server speaking to the MCP client speaking to the MCP server, and they do that via request and response. And Mike did show that. I'm going to show it here in just a second if we have a moment.
Okay. Do you need me to change the slide?
Nope, you're good. Keep it up. And then so the request goes to the kitchen, the Qlik MCP server. And in the MCP server, we have our APIs, as Mike mentioned at the very beginning. These are all of the things that we know and love about Qlik. Adding selections, creating charts, creating glossaries, all of these things that happen, whether it's in the front end through the browser, whether it's through the APIs as a development backend tool, all of that is Qlik. And so the MCP server is just a new way to interact with Qlik, a new way via an agent as opposed to Google Chrome or as opposed to an API call. The Qlik APIs get to work. They make the order according to the request, the MCP request, and then they send a response back, an MCP response to the MCP client, the waiter. And the waiter then translates that response to me, the user. So Mike, if you can swap to the next slide, please. I think the best way that I've found to think about it is MCP servers are like USBs for agents. It's a standard that is shared and it works everywhere if someone is following the standard. And that's kind of the key part, right? Is we've seen as we've released our MCP server and customers have gotten started, there are MCP clients out there that don't have it, or sorry, there are agents out there that don't have an MCP server. Or if they do have an MCP server, it's kind of like a USB 2.0 server, right? Like we technically have USB, but it's like really slow in the year 2026. So your mileage will vary based on all the factors we've talked about, which MCP client you have access to, which model you're using, and so on and so forth. So Qlik is using MCP as the standard goes. It just depends on if your LLM or your agent of choice has an MCP server. Okay, I'm going to do one brief little demo, Mike.
Okay, let me just enable your screen.
Thank you. Let me know when that's up.
All right, so we're going to Josh desktop. I'm going to move Josh out of the way. What I'm going to do, Josh, give me guys 1 second. I think your screen looks pretty clear.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So you're live now.
I'm alive. I'm happy to be alive. This request I'm going to send, can you please find the apps that I have access to? I'm just going to confirm that my MCP server is active or connected to Qlik. And so what I want to talk about back was to that MCP request and the response. Right here, we can see this request happening. Inside of Claude, and it's similar in other agents, but inside of Claude, you can see all of these steps taken by Claude, right? These reasoning and thinking and messages that get sent to me and the steps that it's taking. Among those steps is the Qlik search tool. And that search tool is made up of a request, as we talked about with the waiter, and a response from the kitchen. So the waiter provide a very simple thing. Please search for all apps, limit it to 20 items. Now this limit is part of the tool, but if I were to change it, so here's what I'll change it as we talk. Please instead search for 100 items instead of 20. So by prompting it, it can adjust that request. We'll look at that in a moment. But back here, it says search for 20, and then this is the response from the Qlik APIs via the MCP server. I can see app IDs, I can see names, I can see descriptions, created at, updated, the space that it's in, owner names, so on and so forth for these 20 different apps that it found. And so all of this information is returned to the LLM as additional context, right? If we're familiar with context, it's just the details and the information available to the LLM to make a decision. So my initial request was, can you please find the apps that I have access to? And it did some thinking, and then Qlik said, hey, here's 20 apps that you have access to. So let me close this up really quick. Right here, this text on the screen is not actually Qlik anymore. We're back to the waiter translating that information to me, right? The waiter took the request to the kitchen provided a response, and the waiter carried that response back to my table and said, Josh, here's the first 20 apps you have access to. And we can look through these. And then I sent a new request back to the kitchen. Please search for 100. It says, okay, the search API has a cap of 20. So instead, me, the waiter, I'm going to paginate that request on your behalf. So I'm going to ask the kitchen for 20, and then 20, and then 20, and then 20. And so if we see here, we're going to do a Qlik search again, limit it to 20. Another Qlik search, we'll limit it to another 20. And then the research was null, right? I found it. So 20 plus 20 plus 18 equals 58. That's the math that the LLM is doing. I'm glad it did that math. And so here it goes. Here's all of the apps that I have access to now in my tenant. That's everything. No additional pages returned. So everything in here, this is the LLM or the waiter translating back to me my request as a response from the MCP server. So we're at time, at least I'm at time for me, but I hope that this has been helpful. I've seen that there's been some questions in chat. Mike, have we been able to get through all of those all right?
Yes, actually, Mark, one of our partners, has been answering a lot of the questions, and I wanted to say thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, BI tracker, I can check that on my end as well. I don't have time to at the moment, so maybe I will. You could say trust me, and I'm happy to provide a receipt later once we check out of the restaurant. But I do need to dine and dash as I am off to another meeting. But I hope this has been
Josh,
helpful.
this is, we can definitely revisit more with MCP. I know I plan on doing this as time allows. You guys could imagine that preparing for Qlik Connect is also a major responsibility right now on my part as well. But I wanted to bring back the live stream Fridays, at least start introducing some new topics. And I'm definitely going to, there you go. We're back on the live.
Yep. I've turned off my screen sharing. So
yeah, no problem. If you got to jump, Josh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me on this. I definitely would love to have you on again when we, start evolving more of this technology and capabilities. So thanks again, and we'll stay in touch.
Of course, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're coming to Qlik Connect, come say hi. I'll be
Yes,
there.
definitely.
So,
Both of us will be there as well. So I'm just going to wrap this up, Josh. Thank you so much. So you'll right now the way we're handling these live stream Fridays is they're really ad hoc, right? They're just like I've got some free time and I'm going to on a Monday say, hey guys, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm going to send a link for this Friday's live stream. And we're going to learn about Qlik Answers, or we're going to learn about Discovery Agent, or it's just informal sharing, knowledge transfer. You know, you watch my videos, you see my posts. It's similar stuff like that, and hopefully it'll go a little bit smoother next time just because, we're trying to learn the software. I'm actually going to get in touch with corporate and find out if there's a software I could use that'll, be more turnkey versus like if you saw how I had this set up, I have Open Broadcast Studio connected to YouTube Qlik account, setting up a broadcast, turning on a live stream, and then Video Ninja, which is kind of like a bridge to bring Josh in. But you saw the snafu that we had with the whole mics being not recognized and all these screens and stuff. So when I do something myself using OBS, the Open Broadcast Studio, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. But when you want to bring a guest in, it gets a little convoluted. And I definitely want to have more guests on because you can see it's always, it's not just what I know, it's what they know as well that I want to help transfer to you guys as well. All righty, guys. So thank you so much. You know where you can reach me on LinkedIn. If you have any further questions, I'll do my best to answer. And I hope to see many of you if you are going to Qlik Connect in my home state of Florida at the Gaylord Palms. I believe it's around April 13th. If you haven't registered yet, please do so. It's always a great event. I purely go to Qlik Connect just to talk to everybody. Mark knows that as well. Like I'm seeing his thumbnail right here popping up. I'm also presenting this time at Qlik Connect. I'm going to be doing a thing on Qlik Automate and integration with Qlik Analytics. It definitely is a good session because I already ran through the scenario. It worked out awesome, and I wowed a few people on that as well. So, all righty, guys. So I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great weekend, and stay tuned for the next live stream, which will pop up randomly, most likely within LinkedIn when it's ready. It might be next Friday, it might not. But other than that, it's always good to see you. And there's my phone. Yes, that's Super Mario Brothers. All right, guys. Take care of yourself. Have a great weekend, and hope to see you soon.